According to James Uellermann, psychology professor at NYU, first impressions affect our future job opportunities, collaborations, and other important things in our life. So how can we make a great first impression? Today I'm going to show you 5 tips on how you can make a great first impression. So the first tip would be not to give any stereotypical answers when you're communicating with someone else. So for example, when someone asks you, how are you? Just saying, fine, good. Or when someone asks you, for example, where you're from, just saying where you're from and that's it. If you want to come across as impressive and interesting, then you have to be impressed and interested. Because just like you, everyone else on this world also wants attention. However, if you're just giving short answers and you don't show that you're interested in communicating with them, that shows the entire opposite of being impressed and interested. People like it when other people make their conversations feel effortless. And of course, if they always have to ask you new questions and you only give them short answers, that is going to make the conversation extremely effortful because the other person always has to try and think of a new thing to say. However, you definitely don't want to go to the other extreme of talking too much. The sweet spot between these two extremes would be giving the other person enough information so that they can ask you a question or something else, or bring up a different topic, or that you can ask them something, but not too much that you don't let them talk. And what you could do instead of giving these short and stereotypical answers, and some of the questions we get asked very often is, for example, what do you do? Where are you from? What do you like doing in your free time? And to make your answers more interesting, instead of just telling them where you're from, you could also say what you like about where you live and what you don't like about where you live. Or when you're asked about what you do, you could simply tell them about how much you like your job or how much you don't. And the second tip would be to be positive and high energy. So for example, with Will Smith, the reason why he's so charismatic is because he's really positive and really high energy. And one reason why you make a good impression if you're positive and high energy is that we have mirror neurons, and these mirror neurons, for example, when someone smiles at you, you will smile back simply because you've seen the other person smile and therefore you mimic them. And if you're positive and high energy, then they are going to mimic you. And our facial expressions and the way we move influence how we feel. It's not only the opposite way around. It's not only that we, when we feel depressed, tend to slouch, we also tend to feel depressed when we start to slouch. You see, this mind-body connection is bi-directional, and the reason why you then will make a good impression on them is that they feel good. And people don't care about what you look like. People don't care about what you've done. They don't care about what you say. They care about how you make them feel. So also when you ask them questions, try to ask them questions that allow them to talk about something that they're really passionate about, that they really love talking about. Because then they will feel great, and then they will associate feeling great with you. And of course, another way of making other people feel good is through compliments. However, sometimes compliments, they can sometimes seem ungenuine. Try to give people unusual compliments, because people are kind of habituated, they're used to getting the compliments that they always get. The reward starts to decrease over time if we are habituated to a certain thing, and that is the same with compliments. If you're given a compliment all the time, always the same one, then at first it's going to feel like, great, wow, I'm getting a compliment for this, I'm getting so much attention for this. But over time you're going to feel like, yeah, okay, that's still nice, but I know that by now, everyone tells me that. And that will also make you seem not very special, because you're giving that person the compliment that they always get. You will not stand out, you'll just be like any other person to them if you only give them compliments about things that they always get compliments about. I mean, of course, getting a compliment that they usually get is better than not giving them any at all. But if you want them to feel especially good, then giving them compliments that they don't usually get is the way to go. And because we value more what we are working on, giving people compliments about something they're trying to do very hard, something that they're working on, something where they're putting a lot of effort in, if you acknowledge and reward people through complimenting them, and if you compliment them for that, they're going to love that. And of course, you also want them to be very specific so that they seem more genuine. You also want to be a good listener. And one of the ways you can make people feel that way is when they feel heard. So if they make a good point, or if they ask you a good question, or if they say something intelligent, simply point that out and ask many questions, because asking questions shows that you're interested in the other person. And this may sound kind of narcissistic, and actually it is, but people love talking about themselves a lot. In fact, Jay Shetty once said that people find it more pleasurable to talk about themselves than eating or making money. And then the fourth tip would be that you want to touch people here and there. Of course, you don't want to get weird with touching, because that's definitely not going to make a good impression. But as long as you do it in an okay and acceptable way, touching other people is going to be very beneficial for you. That is because then oxytocin is released, and as you probably know, oxytocin increases this feeling of being bonded to someone else. So if you touch other people often in appropriate ways, then they're actually going to like you more. And if you look at Chris Hemsworth, one reason why he's so charismatic is that he touches people a lot. If you see how he communicates with others. Of course, he's also super charismatic because he's super handsome, but in general, even if he wasn't as handsome, if he wasn't that great, he'd still be just as charismatic. And the fifth tip would be confident body language. It's definitely going to make a good impression. Of course, straight posture, and in general, opening up a bit, because when you show that you feel comfortable, then you come across as very confident. By the way, if you want to know more about how to look confident, I've made a whole video on this. You can watch this video here.